Look at the Lakers as a whole, it's a franchise that is one of the best in the world, not just in the NBA, but the world. And so, if you ever have the opportunity to wear the purple and gold, you can't turn that down. As a coach, as a player, because they're all about championships. And so, they have a process. They had a young team.
You just mentioned team. That team alone held LeBron James to 17 points a game in the finals. How did you guys collectively slow him down?
That's a question he's going to have to answer. I think, for the game plan was
Jason Kidd slams LeBron. Legends say, "We warned ya." It was the ultimate betrayal from an unexpected source. Jason Kidd, LeBron's former teammate, a man who once shared a locker room and a championship dream with him, has just broken the basketball world's code of silence. In a stunning public broadside, the Dallas Mavericks head coach didn't just criticize LeBron's game, he exposed what he calls a fundamental flaw in his leadership, echoing a warning that legends of the game have been whispering for years. This is the story of a brother turning into a prosecutor and the damning testimony that could define LeBron's final. It wasn't on a rival network. It wasn't in a fiery post-game press conference. It was on his own team's flagship radio station, in a wide-ranging, off-season interview meant to discuss the Mavericks' future. Jason Kidd, relaxed and reflective, was asked about the challenges of managing modern superstar egos, especially compared to his own playing days. The conversation was theoretical, until the host pivoted, mentioning the high-profile leadership styles seen around the league. Kidd paused, his tone shifting from conversational to deliberate. It's interesting, he began. There's leading by example, which is about work, and then there's leading by expectation, where the standard isn't what you do every day in the dark, but what you demand from others in the light. I've been around both. He let that hang for a moment. The host, sensing blood in the water, gently nudged. You've played with some all-time great leaders. How do you differentiate? That's when Kidd went for the throat. Take a guy like Dirk, he said, invoking his own Hall of Fame teammate in Dallas. His leadership was in his consistency, his silence and the grind. He never pointed, he just was the standard. Now you look at a LeBron, phenomenally talented, a genius, but the leadership, it's transactional, it's conditional. It's follow me, but only if the pieces around me are to my exact specification. When they're not, the leadership becomes a vacuum, and everyone feels it. The organization feels it. The players feel it. That's not a criticism of his greatness. It's an observation of his method, and that method has a cost. The host was stunned into silence. Kidd continued, driving the point home with the calm precision of a surgeon. We warned people about this years ago, those of us who've been in the trenches, the players from my era, the guys who built teams on grit first. We saw it. You can't build an enduring culture on a foundation that can opt out, that can shift blame, that is about leveraging power as much as it is about sharing responsibility. We tried to warn folks, but the highlights were too bright, the stats were too big. Now you see the cost. You see the teams that flicker and fade. You see the constant turnover. That's the cost. With that, Jason Kidd, a man who shared the 2008 Olympic podium with LeBron, who battled alongside and against him, had done the unthinkable. He had translated years of private elite player skepticism into a public clinical diagnosis. He didn't call LeBron a bad teammate. He called him a different and, in his view, a fundamentally flawed kind of leader. And most devastatingly, he claimed this wasn't a new opinion, but an old warning from the league's elders that had gone unheeded. The interview clip labeled Kidd's Leadership Takedown was not just a viral moment, it was a manifesto from inside the castle walls.
The Mamba mentality simply means trying to be the best version of yourself. That's what the mentality means. It means every day, you're trying to become better. And it's a constant quest. It's an infinite quest.
We talk about being passionate, being obsessive, being relentless, being resilient, and being fearless. These are the 5 pillars of the
Jason Kidd's comments did not exist in a vacuum. They acted as a starter's pistol, and suddenly a chorus of legendary voices from the past seemed to step forward, not to defend Kidd directly, but to validate the essence of his warning. It was as if he had given them permission to speak a long-held truth. First, it was a cryptic but telling quote from a retired Eastern Conference star, a contemporary of Kidd's, in a podcast interview about untouchable topics in the NBA. "People get mad when you talk about it," the former All-Star said, "but there's a reason certain guys, for all their individual glory, have a trail of, let's call them, reconfigured franchises behind them. It's not coincidence, it's a style, and that style brines bright, but it also burns out the people and the systems around it. We all talked about it. We knew." Then, a Hall of Fame big man, known for his no-nonsense approach, was asked an unrelated question about team chemistry on a radio tour. He veered sharply off topic. "You want chemistry? Look at the Spurs dynasty. Look at the 90s Bulls. That's leadership from within, built on sacrifice, not convenience. Today, you got guys who want to be CEOs of the team. A CEO can fire people, can demand new resources. A captain goes down with the ship or saves it with the crew he has. Different philosophies. One builds legends. The other builds very impressive individual resumes." The host, scrambling, asked if he was referring to anyone specific. The legend simply smiled and said, "The game knows." Most damningly, a clip resurfaced from a 2014 interview with the late, great Kobe Bryant. In it, Kobe was asked about player empowerment and building a legacy. His response, once seen as generic, now sounded prophetic and aimed. "My legacy," Kobe said, his gaze intense, "is tied to this city, to this logo. I fought with the people here to build something that lasted. I didn't bring my legacy with me like a suitcase, looking for the best place to unpack it. I built it in one place, with the mortar of other people's sweat and trust. That's the only kind that doesn't wash away in the rain." The juxtaposition was brutal. Kobe's suitcase comment exploded across social media, framed as a direct years-old counterpoint to LeBron's journey. Kidd hadn't just spoken for himself. He had tapped into a deep, silent river of belief among the old guard, players whose definition of leadership was forged in the pre-social media, pre-super team era. They were now, one by one, nodding in agreement, confirming that the warning signs about LeBron's transactional, power-centric style of leadership had been visible to them for over a decade. The narrative was no longer Jason Kidd versus LeBron. It was the legend's verdict versus the modern king. And the verdict was that his kingdom, for all its splendor, was built on unstable ground.
He's probably about to find out I used to talk about him all over the FBI and say he illustrates what the endless pursuit of excellence looks like. I don't want to offend anybody, but he's the best basketball player on the earth today. There may be, people have different views. I'm sorry, year 15.
So you can't make anybody happy
No,
this
year 15 for LeBron, and he is still the king, the top of the game. But every offseason.
I played against the Miami Bron. You had your moments when you were in Toronto against the Cleveland Bron. How did he?
To understand the slam from Kidd and the murmurs of agreement from other legends, you have to break down what they mean by transactional. It's a cold corporate word they're using to describe a basketball heart. Their critique isn't about effort on the court. It's about the unspoken contract LeBron is perceived to have with his team. The first condition, they suggest, is the roster itself. From their perspective, LeBron's full, legendary commitment, the kind that transforms a group into a brotherhood, seems to activate only when the pieces around him meet a certain championship-ready specification. Think about the bubble year. The roster was tailor-made. Shooters, defenders, a co-star in AD. In that environment, his leadership was undeniable, a gravitational force that pulled everyone into orbit. But when the roster is flawed, aging, or injured, that's when the legends say they see the condition in his leadership. The investment seems to become guarded, the patience shorter, the public and private signals shifting from, "we will figure this out," to a silent, palpable frustration that the tools he's been given aren't adequate. The criticism is that true leadership, in their old-school view, is about elevating whatever you have, about being the constant in the variable equation. They see LeBron's leadership not as a constant, but as a variable itself, one tied directly to the competence of the front office.
The second part of the transaction is what you might call the leverage of silence. This is the powerful nonverbal language Kidd alluded to. It's not the fiery outburst in a huddle, it's the opposite. It's the turned back during a timeout, the cryptic social media blackout during trade drama, the body language on the bench that broadcasts a profound disconnect. In the eyes of his critics from past eras, this isn't just frustration, it's a strategic tool. It's a way to apply immense pressure on a franchise without uttering a single word for the media to quote. It communicates dissatisfaction not to solve a problem in the locker room, but to signal to the front office that the terms of their unspoken deal are being violated. It's leadership not as inspiration, but as negotiation, a form of high-stakes corporate communication performed on the public stage. Finally, there's the aspect of shared accountability. The Legends brand of leadership, as described by men like Kidd, who played with Dirk Nowitzki, was built on absorbing blame. The star took the heat so the role players could play free. The critique of LeBron is that his leadership model, while often publicly supportive, has a lineage of subtle deflection. The famous "I don't know" press conferences, the comments about roster construction, the framing of challenges as external obstacles rather than internal failures. To the old guard, this isn't shrewd, it's the opposite of captaincy. A captain goes down with the ship. A CEO, they argue, analyzes why the ship wasn't seaworthy. Kidd's slam was ultimately about this distinction. Is LeBron the captain of the Lakers, or is he its CEO? And the Legends are testifying that in their book, you can't truly be both.
Rodman, he rebounds, right?
Yes.
So
he was an upgrade over Horace Grant.
Whoa. He rebounds. So I would define Dennis Rodman safely as one of the, if not the greatest rebounder and one of the greatest defenders of all time. So that is a role player, an amazing role player.
He's a Hall of Fame caliber player. And by the way,
Hall of Fame role player.
By the way, he came
the
from
greatest rebounder
by
ever.
the way, hold on. He came from the Spurs, not the Pistons. He went to the Spurs first before he went to
being a half-court player in his 20s and 30s was hard for him. So being 40, what he going to do is get the ball and he going to take a three or a step-back three or a step-back jumper, right? There's no trying to get all the way to that basket because he don't have the foot speed anymore. So that will limit us.
Jason Kidd's accusation of transactional leadership wasn't an abstract philosophy debate. He, and the Legends echoing him, pointed to a tangible, brutal cost. They argued this style of leadership leaves a specific, scorched earth pattern in its wake, a legacy of organizational exhaustion that follows the brilliance. Look, they say, at the trail. The historic departure from Cleveland in 2010, which wasn't just a signing, but a televised referendum on that franchise's failure to build correctly around him. The dizzying, pressurized years in Miami where the "not 4, not 5, not 6" proclamation created an unsustainable atmosphere that ultimately fractured. The return to Cleveland, which brought a miracle championship, but also saw the complete gutting of the team's young assets and future picks to build instantly around him, leaving a hollowed-out shell the moment he left for LA. And now, Los Angeles. A championship delivered, yes, but followed by what his critics see as a relentless cycle of roster churn, coaching instability, and a pervasive air of "this isn't quite good enough," leading to constant drama and a fractured relationship with the front office. The cost, according to this view, isn't just in draft picks or lost seasons, it's in institutional energy. Each stop is left in a state of profound depletion, financially, in terms of future assets, but also culturally. The entire focus of the franchise becomes a single, overwhelming project, satisfying the conditions required to unlock the superstar's full commitment. Long-term planning is sacrificed for short-term, win-now moves. Young players are traded away for veterans who fit the immediate mold. The development of a lasting, organic team culture is often secondary to the culture of supporting LeBron. When he moves on, the franchise isn't just losing a player, it's collapsing from the gravitational pull of a star that has left orbit, often needing years to recover its own institutional identity and draft capital. This, the Legends argue, is the ultimate proof of the transaction. The relationship is between the player and the championship opportunity, not between the player and the franchise itself. The city is a venue. The teammates are supporting actors. The front office is a service provider. When the terms of the deal, a credible title shot, seem no longer fulfillable, the deal is up. And what's left behind isn't a legacy of growth, but a kingdom that required all resources to maintain the king's court and is now bankrupt.
Are always by far the 16 and 17 finals games. I mean, that got to be some of the best basketball ever played. And it's crazy because, like, you know, basketball always gets better. So, like, we'll watch 05, 10, 95, and it's like, okay, you see the change in skill. Like 16
It's
and
definitely gotten
17, those finals were like peak basketball.
Watch it, but I know the fact that one dude of y'all, 21 turnovers? 3 people had like 17.
The immediate aftermath of Kidd's comments was not a unified defense of LeBron James from the current player fraternity. Instead, it was a stark and revealing silence, punctuated by a few carefully worded, non-committal deflections from his peers. When asked, most active stars gave versions of, "I'm not getting into that," or "Jason's entitled to his opinion." No one, not even his closest allies in the league, mounted a passionate public defense of his leadership style. This silence from his contemporaries was perhaps more damaging than the attack itself. It suggested that Kidd's critique, while harsh, was not seen as outrageous or foreign within the player's own private conversations. Meanwhile, the basketball media, armed with the Legends Warned Us framework, embarked on a brutal historical audit. Every past LeBron teammate who had ever made a sideways comment, from Kyrie Irving's old frustrations about the responsibilities of being a leader to Kevin Love's candid discussions about the intense pressure in Cleveland, was dredged up and re-examined not as isolated grievances, but as corroborating evidence in a larger case. Anonymous quotes from former teammates, once dismissed as sour grapes, were now reframed as whispered testimonies. The narrative was solidifying. This wasn't Jason Kidd's lone opinion. This was the long-suppressed truth of the LeBron James experience, finally given a credible and respected voice. For LeBron, this represented a crisis he could not solve with a triple-double or a playoff series win. He has spent 2 decades meticulously crafting a legacy of greatness, philanthropy, and business acumen. He has answered every on-court criticism with performance. But this was a critique of his essence as a teammate and a leader, coming from a respected basketball mind who had shared the floor with him. You cannot stat sheet your way out of an accusation about the climate you create. The fear for LeBron's camp is that this transactional label, once lodged by a figure like Kidd and echoed by legends, could become the sticky, permanent footnote to his career, the asterisk of greatness that reads, "but at what cost to the teams he led?" The narrative is now out in the wild, and it's one his unparalleled on-court achievements can't directly silence.
That's why championships mean it's not the actual ring, it's the pursuit of it and a commitment to going for it. Come hell or high water. LeBron knows that, whether he's willing to admit it.
And I think you just brought up the name, Stephen A., that has really framed this argument as much as Jordan or LeBron, and that's Kobe. And, you know, it's times like these where you so miss Kobe.
Here's the bottom line, and I know this is going to hurt your feelings. LeBron James has been the...
We have now crossed a threshold from which there is no return. Jason Kidd's calculated slam and the echoing chorus of legendary ascent have done something no playoff loss, no executive feud, no media criticism ever could. They have placed an indelible question mark directly on the heart of LeBron James's legacy. It is no longer simply about if he is great. The new corrosive question is about the nature of that greatness. This is the stain that statistics cannot bleach clean. You can point to the points, the assists, the championships, the iconic moments. But now, in response, critics can point to the testimony of Jason Kidd. They can invoke the knowing nods of past legends. They can trace the pattern of depleted franchises and reconfigured rosters. The debate has been permanently elevated or degraded from the tangible to the intangible, from the quantifiable to the qualitative, from is he the greatest to what is the true cost of his greatness. For the modern NBA, this moment is a referendum on its own values. Kidd and the old guard represent a fading ideal, leadership as sacrifice, legacy as something built with and within a community, even when it's hard. LeBron represents the apex of a modern reality, leadership as influence, legacy as a personal brand that can be deployed across platforms and cities, empowered by agency and leverage. Kidd didn't just attack LeBron, he attacked the entire ecosystem that celebrates and enables this kind of power. The warning was not just for fans, but for franchises and future stars about the long-term price of doing business with a sovereign entity. Finally, for LeBron James himself, the final chapters of his career are now shrouded in this new, unshakable narrative. Every leadership moment will be scrutinized through Kidd's lens. A supportive huddle will be analyzed for authenticity. A moment of frustration will be framed as conditional investment. A championship won will be weighed against the organizational cost paid. He is no longer just playing basketball. He is living in a courtroom where the jury is composed of the ghosts of the game's past, and the verdict on his leadership is being written in real time. Jason Kidd didn't just offer an opinion, he offered a final, damning piece of evidence in the trial of LeBron's legacy. And "we warned you" are the 3 words that will echo long after the final buzzer of his career has sounded. So, what's the final judgment? Were Jason Kidd and the Whispering Legends right to finally speak a painful truth about a style of leadership they believe is corrosive to the true, lasting fabric of a team? Or was this a calculated, bitter broadside from a past generation, unable to comprehend the power and agency of the modern superstar? Is LeBron's transactional approach simply smart business in a cutthroat league? Or is it a fundamental betrayal of what sports leadership is supposed to be? The courtroom is open. The witnesses have testified.